Vanna White's dark past. Fiancé's death, miscarriage and Playboy scandal. To millions of Americans, Vanna White is the ever-smiling, glamorous co-host of Wheel of Fortune, effortlessly turning letters and lighting up TV screens since 1982. With her poised presence, flawless fashion, and warm demeanor, Vanna has become a staple in American pop culture. But behind her radiant smile lies a past that is filled with heartbreak, scandal, and personal tragedy, a side of her story many have never heard. This is the untold, darker side of Vanna White's life. A tale of loss, grief, and resilience that makes her long-standing career all the more remarkable. In today's video we will reveal a shocking secret. If you like our video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. The early years. Dreams and sacrifice. Vanna Marie White was born on February 18, 1957, in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Her father abandoned the family when she was just a baby, and she was raised by her mother and stepfather, Herbert White, whose last name she eventually took. From a young age, Vanna had dreams of stardom. After graduating high school, she moved to Atlanta and then to Los Angeles in the late 1970s to pursue acting. Like many aspiring actresses, she struggled with odd jobs, auditions, and rejection. But she never gave up, and eventually, she found her way into the entertainment world, but not without paying a personal price. The Playboy controversy, a scandal before fame. Long before she was America's sweetheart, Vanna was a young actress trying to make ends meet. In 1982, she posed for a set of lingerie photos that would later come back to haunt her. She claims the photos were taken before she had any fame, during a time when she was broke and desperate. "I did something I thought I had to do at the time," she later said. But in 1987, at the height of her Wheel of Fortune fame, Playboy magazine published those old lingerie photos without her permission. The spread shocked fans and led to public scrutiny. Vanna was devastated. Though she hadn't posed nude and had done nothing illegal, the incident became a national scandal. In interviews, she openly cried while discussing it. "I made a mistake," she admitted. "I was young and needed the money. I had no idea they'd come back like this." Despite the humiliation, Vanna stood her ground, and the public for the most part sympathized. In fact, the controversy may have inadvertently cemented her celebrity status, proving that even the girl next door has a complicated past. Tragedy strikes. The death of John Gibson. Perhaps the most heartbreaking chapter of Vanna's life came in 1986, when her fiancé, actor and soap opera star John Gibson, was killed in a tragic plane crash. The couple had been together for several years and were deeply in love. Gibson, a former Chippendales dancer-turned-actor, was charismatic, good-looking, and had proposed to Vanna. They were planning a future together, dreaming of marriage and family. But fate had other plans. On May 17, 1986, Gibson was piloting a small airplane when it crashed near Van Nuys Airport in California. He died instantly. Vanna was devastated. She later recalled, "It felt like my whole world came crashing down. I didn't know how to move on." She took time away from the spotlight to grieve, and the experience left a lasting scar. "You never get over something like that," she once said. "You just learn to live with it." Despite her pain, Vanna returned to Wheel of Fortune, using work as a form of therapy. Her professionalism during such a turbulent time earned her even more respect from colleagues and fans. A private struggle, miscarriage and motherhood. In 1990, Vanna married George Santopietro, a successful restaurateur. The couple seemed happy, and Vanna was excited to become a mother. In 1992, she publicly announced her pregnancy in a very creative way by revealing the phrase "Vanna's pregnant" as part of a puzzle on Wheel of Fortune. But just weeks later, Vanna suffered a devastating miscarriage. "I was so thrilled to be pregnant and then so sad to lose the baby," she said in a later interview. The miscarriage added another layer to the grief she had already endured in her personal life. However, Vanna didn't let that moment define her. She went on to have 2 children, a son named Nicholas and a daughter named Giovanna, and has always been deeply protective of her family life. While she divorced Santopietro in 2002, the two have remained committed to co-parenting their children. quiet strength, life behind the letters. Despite the hardships, Vanna White has remained a pillar of consistency on one of America's most beloved game shows. She has co-hosted Wheel of Fortune for more than 4 decades, making her one of the longest-running game show hosts in history. Her partnership with Pat Sajak became iconic, and she earned a Guinness World Record for the most frequent clapper, estimated at more than 3.5 million claps. But beyond the glitz and glamour, Vanna's quiet strength has always stood out. She is a woman who has endured intense public scrutiny, the tragic loss of a fiancé, and the heartbreak of a miscarriage, and yet, she has never allowed those experiences to define her. Instead, she's chosen to persevere with grace and gratitude. Final thoughts. More than just a TV icon. To know Vanna White only as the smiling hostess of Wheel of Fortune is to know only half the story. Her life has been a series of private battles fought behind a public smile. The loss of a loved one, the sting of public humiliation, and the silent sorrow of a miscarriage, these experiences have shaped her far more than the game show ever could. Vanna White's story is one of resilience. It's a reminder that even those who seem to have it all have walked through pain and fire. But what truly sets her apart is not her fame or fortune, it's her ability to keep going, to keep smiling, and to keep standing tall in the face of life's cruelest twists. She may be best known for turning letters, but in real life, Vanna White has turned tragedy into triumph. It's a sad fact of life that there are very few things that you can count on, but for generations of kids home sick from school, one of those things was Wheel of Fortune. Millions of people have tuned in to some light-hearted banter, the sound of a spinning wheel, and the cheering of Pat Sajak and Vanna White. Just wholesome. And it was designed to be that way. When Merv Griffin picked White from a pool of contestants, she says that, in hindsight, she thinks he knew exactly what he was going for. I think he saw something between us, a brother-slash-sister type relationship, she told People. Unlike siblings, though, they've only had a single argument in their 40-plus years working together, and she told Fox that it was about whether or not ketchup goes on hot dogs. She says yes. White has turned a lot of letters over the decades, and she's worn a lot of dresses, too. No, she doesn't keep them, and instead, told in style that she prefers jeans and t-shirts when she's not on camera. She hasn't loved them all, particularly the ones with shoulder pads and an oversized Cinderella-style look, and she opts for her own shoes to at least make sure that it's comfortable to do all the walking she has to do. And that's just the beginning of what fans probably don't know about Vanna White. She ended up growing up in the South in a bizarre way. Vanna White wrote a memoir, Vanna Speaks, in 1987, and in it, she gave a huge shout-out to her mother, Joan Marie Nicholas White. She says that her mother made sure she had a loving yet fun childhood growing up in Myrtle Beach, but she also says that just how the family ended up in South Carolina was shockingly non-traditional. Joan was born to an unmarried mother in Syracuse, New York in 1936, and since it was 1936, the idea was pretty scandalous. White says that although her mother's parents wanted to marry, their families forbade it. So what were they going to do with this socially unacceptable baby? Little baby Joan ended up being taken in by a distant family relative and her husband, and it was all very hush-hush. White came to know the couple as her grandparents, writing, "Because the adoption was not handled through the courts and was not technically legal, my grandparents took Mama from the hospital when she was just a few days old, and immediately left the town where they'd lived all their lives to move south. They had no idea where they were heading when they left, and they settled in Myrtle Beach. When Joan was 12, her biological mother died, and she was legally adopted by the couple who had welcomed her into their home. The family stayed in Myrtle Beach, and White remembered their home as being a little rundown but enough for them. Her early animal encounters are wild. In her memoir, Vanna Speaks, Vanna White wrote about a childhood that anyone would feel fortunate to have. Along with a loving family and effortless success in school, she wrote that she was particularly fond of lizards. Even then, though, she was accessorizing. One of my favorite things to do was to put a little string leash around a chameleon's leg, tie the other end to a safety pin, and pin the lizard to me and watch it change to the color of my outfit, she recalled. Weirdly cruel. Perhaps, but not the strangest of her animal friends. She recalled going to visit her grandparents, who lived, via a few nearby neighbors, next to a pond. That pond had an alligator in it, and not only did White and her friend name the gator Mr. Bill, but we fed him pieces of raw meat from the end of a barbecue fork. What did her parents have to say about this? In true good old days fashion, they didn't really know about it until her brother disappeared for a bit, and they became convinced he was eaten by the alligator. Don't worry, he was fine. That, says White, was when she realized her new friend might not be as cuddly as she thought. From the kitchen table to the White House. Vanna White has spent decades on the set of what's essentially a massive board game. So did she always enjoy games? According to what she told Esquire, that's an absolute yes. I grew up playing games with my mother and dad, she said. Jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles, card games, board games, Scrabble, Life, Monopoly. I watched Wheel of Fortune. I was a fan of Wheel of Fortune. In fact, she told InStyle that before she auditioned to be a regular fixture on the show, she had written to the show in an attempt to be selected as a contestant. That didn't work out, but she did get on The Price is Right. It wasn't great. Pat Sajak was sitting in for Larry King when she was interviewed on his show, and revealed, via CNN, that Bob Barker had been incredibly rude to her. He said if you would stop looking in the monitor maybe you might win something, she recalled, clarifying that she wasn't looking in the monitor, she was looking for a friend in the audience, who was supposed to be signaling prices of items. She believes in psychic powers and spiritual manifestations. Vanna White was incredibly close to her mother, and in her autobiography, Vanna Speaks, she wrote that it was her mother who first nurtured her belief in psychic phenomena. White wrote, I believe now that we are all psychic to some degree, but that some of us welcome these experiences, while others fear them and shut them out. She told a strangely unsettling story of sneaking off to a bar that her parents had strictly forbidden her from visiting. While she was there, she noticed a strange woman sitting in the corner, overlooked by everyone else. When she returned home and her mother scolded her for going to a bar she'd been told was off limits, I was stunned. For some reason I blurted out, I knew that was you in the corner.